Hello there. Welcome to another talk. If you would have noticed that I haven't done talks in a few days. Uh, I did do a song, but here I am. And yeah, this is called The Power of Silence. And the reason why this is important is because it's the power of silence which spiritually awakened me. I manifested this unexpected spiritual awakening just under 10 years ago. I'm 34 this year, October 22nd. I was 24 when I had my unexpected spiritual awakening. And then from that came other awakenings. Now, it happened because I sat down, was in silence, and I had enough. And then the silence, because there was nothing, no music or nothing on at the time, this started to take me on a pathway. Now, this pathway is within yourself, but it was having enough. It was a moment of authenticity, having enough, that manifested the awakening. And regularly, every day, I spend many hours. One of the meditations I do, and anyone can do it, is just sit in silence. And then that's how I get my knowledge. That's how I go through, excuse me, that's how I go through my spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is an epiphany. But what happens is when you're connecting to the source, you become more still because you're working with the silence again, and you don't react to the epiphany so much, and you go through them all the time. And so basically, if everybody was to practice stillness and silence, they would start going through spiritual awakening. But most people will run away from silence because they think that the noise is more interesting. You see? But it's actually it's an illusion. What it's like is when you spiritually awaken, it's like you've had a dream. You've been sitting on this bench in a warm, silent day, tranquil day, and then you wake up and it's still tranquil and peaceful, but everyone around you is like in the dream. And like I say, it's when you start acknowledging the silence that the answers start to come. And the answers are coming from your higher self. But what is the higher self? The higher self is the infinity of all existence, right? And that's where all the messages come from. I saw a talk by Rupert or Robert Spider have a discussion, a debate with a scientist, and he can't understand how everything's infinite. Now, the reason that is because programming. You see, I didn't do very well in school. I was kicked out of school at the age of 14 and was very behind, and I believe that's why the spiritual awakening has been so easy for me. But having said that, Eckhart Tolle is an academic. He's got a PhD in something. So, or maybe with Eckhart Tolle, there's the same thing I've got, which is an innocence. Now that innocence, that's what you have when you're in silence. When you're in silence and you're not looking for anything, that's when whatever will reveal itself to you. And, when you start to work with this silent power, that's how you can develop psychic abilities. You start to hear thoughts, obviously, and you also start to hear the higher self's information, and you can differentiate between the higher self's information and the ego mind. And it's this silence that's enabled me to do that. because of the sitting in silence for just under 10 years now. And that's basically my secret of how I've evolved on this path, is because of this silence. I do this a lot. And I've been doing it, like I just said a moment ago, I've been doing it ever since the unexpected spiritual awakening. And like I say, the awakening came from silence, came from having enough. And what I'd basically done was I let whatever was lead the way. You see? So yeah, if you want to know how I get my knowledge, I don't sit and read books. I don't do anything like that. I just sit by myself in silence, and the epiphanies, the understanding, all the stuff comes to me. Because like I say, in silence, that's when the higher self can come through. You see, that's when the subconscious mind, the unconscious part of you, can reveal itself to you. But when we're not in silence, when we're distracted by noise, that can happen. You see? Because the ego self is going off all the time. But it's when we're in silence, that's when your self can reveal itself to itself. Which is, the unconscious parts of yourself, the shadow, which is the unconscious, subconscious mind, and also the higher self. And then in time, what I've managed to do is I've managed to differentiate between the higher voice and what it wants, and the unconscious ego self. But if I wouldn't have went into this silence, that wouldn't have happened. You see? And at the age of 24, I had to make a decision. And basically that decision was just letting silence lead the way. You see? This lead the way. Because in the present moment and in this silence, that is the doorway to what people would call God. I would, say it's the infinity of all existence. That scientist I mentioned earlier, he was saying that it's not infinite. Well, yes, it is, because everything has to come from nothing at some stage. What's nothing? It's infinity. Nothingness is silence, isn't it? And in silence, that's where all the answers are. So in nothingness and silence, it's like this God force, and that's what God really is. It's this silent force within nothing. And basically, it's because it's infinity, it means it's ran itself an infinite number of times, meaning that you're basically getting the most perfect answer because it's had a chance to run itself and do itself an infinite number of times. Meaning that the answer you get is the most perfect version that can ever be. And in silence, nothingness, that's where the Akashic Records is. But the other thing is, because it's infinity, because nothingness is infinity, that means that there's infinite Akashic Record. There's not an end. But every infinite possibility has already happened as well. And the human mind can, find it hard to deal with that. But like I say, all this information, I found out years later into the awakening that I was talking about non-duality. I didn't even know what it was. Then I stumbled across some Buddhism talks on YouTube a few years into the awakening. I found out that what I was talking about was in Buddhism. And some scientists talk about nothingness as well. But yeah, if you want to understand the power of nothing, observe silence. Then you'll realize that this nothingness is this God. That's what the God is. It's this force. Because if you think of it, an epiphany or information coming to you in silence is very real. And that's really what happens when you're in silence. So that is what nothingness is. It's this force that is full of answers, that is full of knowing, understanding, wisdom. And this is my secret. You know, it's not my secret anymore because I'm sharing it, but that's basically what this awakening has been showing me ever since the unexpected spiritual awakening at the age of 24. So that's what I do. You know, I make sure every day that I have at least a few hours of doing that. And that's how I get my information. It's the same thing Albert Einstein used to do. To get his science ideas, he used to just sit in solitude and nothing, in silence, and it used to come to him. Because, like I say, he was accessing the same God force that is within the silence. You see? Now, if you're not used to sitting in silence, and if all of a sudden you're trying to do it, what you'll find is, if you're starting to do it, is you'll want to do something. That's because it's manifesting ego, and the more you practice it, the more you're understanding about your ego. So it's a good thing because your ego then is able to reveal itself to you. Therefore, you're able to work out what the core issue is with the ego. You see? So that's why it's a good thing to sit in silence, because you, like I said earlier, you get to witness all the unconscious problems within yourself. You're really witnessing the shadow self. And so that is the power of silence. The power of silence is the power of spiritual awakening. And that's what it's been for me. And continue to be. Because, like I say, when you're in silence, that's when you connect to the higher worlds, higher knowledge, the higher self, God. And I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates, talks, news, research, and much, much more, please do visit my website at www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you.